Evening, ladies and gentlemen, how are you doing? Before I get to the two stories I want to cover from the world's worst propagandising, taxpayer-funded media organisation, that is the BBC, which, frankly, if we had any sense as a nation, would be bulldozed while Match of the Day was live on air. I just want to hold my hands up once again and congratulate one of my personal heroes, the curmudgeonly owl bloke, Peter Hitchens, who is so unendingly miserable. It warms my heart to see it. And I've talked about him a lot because when I very first started this channel, he was knocking it out the park. He was completely right about everything related to the Wu flu. 2 weeks before the story started gaining traction, the man is a visionary. And you may recall he was on Question Time once, years ago, arguing with Liz Truss, of all people, and Owen Jones. And he said something. Well, basically, I'll just find it and play it for you. The man is an oracle. Everything he said was right on the money. And he said that anybody who has the means should leave. And all the great and the good scoffed and laughed and said, "Oh, come on, Peter. Well, now look where you're at. Nowhere to hide for influencers behind disorder." Yeah, so you know what's coming. You know what's coming. Instead of grasping the nettle and dealing with the root cause, they're going to come for you. You best grab your ankles, boys, because they're going to lock you up for anything they can possibly think of. Trumped up charges that would make Stalin blush. I'm going to cover that story, and I'm going to cover another one, the PM spat with Elon Musk, who again is far too sensible to be allowed to get away with what he's doing. So I'm assuming they'll try and do the same as they did to the Orange Oracle and promptly shoot one of his ears off as well.
They're not affected. Their children don't go to bog standard comprehensives. They're not affected. They're not affected by. They're not affected. They're not affected by crime. Yes, I do know how I'm talking about because I know what they do all the time. They will not discuss these things. They will not do anything about them. They ignore what you say, and you think that at general election time you can do something about it. No, the people who stand before you at general election time for the political parties are people who've been pre-selected. You have no control. If I stood for Parliament, or if he stood for Parliament, from our positions, which are quite popular, the fact is the party machines would erase us. The immense amounts of money they're capable of spending, the enormous access they have to the broadcasting organisations, which we don't have most of the time, would make it impossible. Make it impossible.
You've got more access than I have,
would make it impossible. On the contrary, would make it impossible for anyone outside
Peter, sorry. The question was, what would you say to people who feel like you clearly do
what
about
I've just
the kind
said.
of political association?
I just said it.
Well, no, wait a moment. What would you say to them about how to change things? Are you going to stand as an MP?
I'm sorry.
Are you going to stand as an MP?
No, because for the reasons I've just explained, I wouldn't have the faintest chance. No, my advice to anybody young enough to do so is to emigrate before it's too late.
Oh, for goodness.
Oh, for goodness sake. How right was he? What was that, 10 years ago? How right was he? Look where we are now. As he correctly elucidated there, they will not deal with the problems. And they're going to use the last week's violence as the preface to crush all dissent. The boats are still going to keep coming. Every year, for the next 10, you're getting another 300,000 or 400,000 hairy-arsed, unvetted geezers from third world countries. That's just going to keep happening. Because you know what the real problem is? People talking about it. The Director of Public Prosecution says his team will consider seeking the extradition of social media influencers allegedly playing a role in the violent disorder gripping the UK from abroad. Stephen Parkinson said that offenders must know they are not safe and there is nowhere to hide. Yeah, like we're talking about Bin Laden or Chemical Ali or someone. We're talking about people who disagree with Keir Starmer on social media. That's it. Have any of these influencers, any of them, been actually involved in any of the violence? I've never seen a TikToker with a pair of nunchucks doing kung fu on people outside a place of worship. Not once. Concern has been mounting about extreme social media influencers like Stephen Lennon. He is currently in Cyprus. The court issued a warrant for his arrest. And those of you that are on Twitter, X, will be well aware that he put out an 11-minute video detailing all of the things he said before, during and after the riots, and at no point did he ever say you should go out and smash things and punch people. He just didn't do it. It's the exact same as the very fine People hoax, where the mainstream media clipped the first half of the sentence where the Orange Oracle said, "I am specifically not talking about the white nationalists," and they just clipped that off and then played the part where he said, but there are nice people on both sides. And they said, oh, there you go. Therefore, he's a one-bollocked Austrian. Blatant, brazen lies. But they're coming for him. And I bet you he gets 10 years. Because what have I been telling you ever since I started doing this? It gets 10 times worse before it gets better. Only when the iron boot is stomping on your throat will you realise how bad it's got. And all of the normies, including several of my friends who I've been in vociferous debates with of late, don't think this is a big deal. They don't think it's that bad. They're going to lock up hundreds of people for being very angry at the fact little kids get groomed and are killed in the face. And they're not going to stop the people that, blow up the pop concerts or knife people in the eye. They're going to stop you from being angry about it because these people think they can control every aspect of society. Anyway, enough of the what's coming, we know what's coming. Let's have a quick look at based Elon, shall we? Musk hits back after PM criticises UK civil war post. 2T Ikea has become embroiled in a war of words with Elon after the tech billionaire suggested that civil war is inevitable. The owner of X posted the remarks on the platform in a response to a video showing people aiming fireworks at police. The Prime Minister's spokesman said there was no justification for Mr. Musk's comments, adding there was more than that social media companies can and should be doing. Mr. Musk then replied to a post on X from the PM in which he said that he would not tolerate attacks on communities, asking, shouldn't you be concerned about attacks on all communities? He also shared a video of a person being arrested for offensive comments online, asking, is this Britain or the Soviet Union? Well, you better keep up, Elon, because the British people are well aware that Britain is worse than the Soviet Union, because as at the last count, the UK was arresting thousands of people every year for mean tweets, essentially enforcing state-mandated politeness, like Kim Jong-un on a bad day. That doesn't happen in Russia. Far more people get locked up for tweeting in the UK than they do in Russia. I think the UK has probably got China beat at this point, other than the fact, China started harvesting people's organs, but nobody talks about that for some reason. Justice Minister, yeah, you need a Minister for Justice when you've got none. Also weighed in against Mr. Musk, who has a long history of making controversial remarks online. Yeah, because that's what it's for, to give your opinion. Funny old thing. What, do you have to ask the BBC for permission to have one nowadays, do you? He made pretty deplorable comments. She added that social media companies had a moral responsibility to call for calm and clamp down on misinformation. Misinformation. Always the same words. Misinformation, disinformation. Do you mean lies? Lies is what the BBC spreads. Normal people posting their opinions on Twitter isn't the problem. It's the wholesale falsehoods being aggressively pushed by the mainstream media and all of the platforms except X. Because there seems to be only one bloke in the entirety of Silicon Valley who's got a shred of integrity. And now we get to the rub. When misinformation leads to riots and unrest, there must be consequences. It's easy to argue X has shown disregard for public safety. We urge Ofcom to act as soon as they can with the full weight of the law. And Home Secretary Yvette Cooper said the government would not tolerate armchair thuggery on social media companies need to take responsibility over posts encouraging criminality. Armchair thuggery, that's a good one, isn't it? Sitting in an armchair and giving your opinion on Twitter is just as bad as punching an old woman in the face, pinching her handbag, and then punting a Jack Russell over the double-decker bus. Yeah, it's just as bad. So what's coming, ladies and gentlemen? Well, you know what's coming. You know what's coming, don't you? Thousands more unvetted fighting-age men every week, aggressively prosecuting hundreds of people that complained about it, locking Tony Romo up for about a decade, and finally, reigning to heel the last social media company that allows you to have an opinion on the government. Probably just ban the whole platform in the UK or something. You're going to end up needing a VPN to go on X, aren't you? As I said, anyone with the eyes to see knew this was coming 50 miles away. We saw this staggering drunkenly over the top of the hill like a diplodocus in a yellow shell suit. You know it and I know it. So like I keep telling you, buckle up, boys. Grab the KY jelly and your ankles because 2T Ikea is coming for you. Don't say I didn't warn you. At least, as I said, that you can do a lot of good things in prison. You know, you can lose a bit of weight, get very good at press-ups. It's not all bad, I suppose. But that's just what I think. If you think Keir Starmer's a reasonable fellow and he definitely isn't running an authoritarian, speech-controlling, thought-controlling Orwellian government that's going to lock up you for complaining about mass murder while allowing millions of unvetted men into the country, you let me know in the comments. I will point out one last thing before I go. There's a lot of talk about the violence that's gone on for the last week, but as far as I'm aware, in the last 2 weeks, I don't think as a result of any of the fracas that have gone on in the likes of Middlesbrough and Hull, I don't think there's been any deaths. In fact, I think there's only been 3 significant deaths that spring to mind in the last 2 weeks. And their names were Elsie, Alice, and BB. It's a sobering thought that they've somehow managed to make the big story from the last 2 weeks. Chavs set some wheelie bins on fire in Middlesbrough, when the only real tragedy of the last couple of weeks, because property damage is nothing. It's what happened to those 3. And that's going to happen again and again and again until the government stop focusing on people talking on Twitter and start worrying about the real problem. Anyway, that's me for the day. Hope everyone's doing well. Try not to let it get you down. We all knew it was going to get worse before it got better. And we're nowhere near the eye of the storm yet. Thanks for watching. See you all very soon. Cheers.